After the Colour of Magic game, and once Discworld was more established, Terry Pratchett would show reluctance to let game developers play around with his creation. AdventureSoft approached him to make a graphical point-and-click adventure game based on his novels, though at the time they were known as Horrorsoft and had only made horror games, and he turned them down. They would go on to create their own inept wizard and start the Simon the Sorcerer series instead. Greg Barnett also had trouble convincing Pratchett to agree to license Discworld for his adventure game, so he made the huge step of spending months actually designing the game in order to show the author that he cared about the property, and this won him over. Finally, there would be another Discworld game, this one graphical and using the series in general instead of just a single book. Discworld was released in 1995 and it loosely centred around the plot of Guard's Guards, but with Rincewind becoming the central character and with many appearances from other series regulars.
I bet you thought I was never going to make it through that without saying monkey. Did you get the number of that donkey cot?
The developers initially tried to get John Cleese for the part of Rincewind, but he refused. And Eric Idle got the part, which is probably to the game's benefit.
Yes, I thought so.
All of the rest of the characters were voiced by a small cast of 5 comic actors. Rob Brydon, Kate Robbins, Tony Robinson, and John
I've reversed the polarity of the neutron flow.
Pertwee. For the time, the graphical style of the game was very good, but I feel most of the character designs aren't quite right, in either appearance or characterization. Carrot, for instance, isn't portrayed as simple in the way he is in the books, but rather as the idiot that he very definitely isn't.
Now, Nobby! Do I book him now? What for?
And as wonderful as the cast is, I'm not sure the voices quite work for some of the characters.
Oh, I enjoy it. See you at the city square then. Oops, sorry.
They did want Christopher Lee to play Death, but unfortunately he was out of their price range.
I didn't want to do it, Albert.
The whole thing feels very cartoony, and as such it captures one aspect of the humour of the Discworld novels, but misses all of the subtleties and depth that the books have. The characters lose their complexities and become one-joke caricatures.
How about a kiss for old Nanny?
That's not to say the game isn't funny though. The game often feels like a compilation of moments from the books, with a lot of the jokes taken directly from the novels.
The Shades is an area where curiosity not only kills the cat, but ties lead weights to its feet and throws it in the river.
As mentioned, Eric Idle's Rincewind is excellent. He really gets the tone right for the character, with the world-weary cynicism coming through, and he gets some great lines.
An old wizard who grew a beard mostly because shaving cream costs 2p a bag.
Though it seems they forgot about some of the lines when they had Idle in the recording studio, as this is clearly Brydon attempting an impression.
I'll hang on to this myself.
Some of the bits that move away from using existing characters can be very entertaining too, such as the Palace Guards, who you have to get past repeatedly by finding new ways to set them against each other.
So do you want the bag then?
Yeah, alright.
Which brings us to the puzzles, which are the main problem with the game. Adventure games, especially early ones, are notorious for having nonsensical puzzles that are pretty much impossible to work out by anything but trial and error. Discworld takes this to extremes, with the majority of the puzzles making no sense at all, and when you end up resorting to trying every item on everything else, there's no special comments written for different attempts to make it interesting or to give you clues. You'll just constantly hear this.
That doesn't work.
Over.
That doesn't work.
And over.
That doesn't work.
And over again.
That doesn't work.
There are things that will only happen depending on seemingly random occurrences, such as only being able to see the psychiatrist if this seat is available in the waiting room, otherwise you will just wait forever. In order to solve another puzzle, you have to take a tomato and throw it at a tax collector for no apparent reason. The game just won't let you pick up another tomato before you've done it, and the second tomato turns out to have a worm in it that you end up needing. Even after you inevitably turn to a walkthrough, you still end up wondering how you were possibly supposed to work it out in the first place.
It's time for another good puzzle, bad puzzle. Good puzzle. Surreptitiously swapping a wizard's staff for a broom handle. Bad puzzle. Surreptitiously swapping a wizard's broom handle for a snake. The end.
Of course you don't just try to replace a broom handle with a snake. That would be ludicrous. No, you first use starch on the snake to make it go stiff, and then you use fertilizer on it to make it grow. It seems so obvious now.
The old magic markings on the magically stiff and extremely long snake trick.
The game is just full of puzzles like this. It's a shame because there's a lot of interesting ideas within the game. A little way into it, you get access to L-Space, Pratchett's concept that all libraries in all space and time are linked. In terms of the game, this is used to allow you to go back in time and change the present by manipulating events in the past. It's an excellent idea that worked wonderfully in games such as the LucasArts classic, Day of the Tentacle. The problem is that while that game had cleverly designed puzzles to work out, Discworld again relies on moon logic. The novels have something called a quantum weather butterfly based on the famous butterfly effect in chaos theory. No, not that chaos theory. It can actually purposefully create weather with the flap of its wings. The game expects us to work out that because of this, then obviously we have to capture this butterfly, which you do by putting a frog in the mouth of Rincewind's sleeping past self, obviously, and then place the butterfly at this specific lamppost in order to create a rainstorm in the future over this guy. Quite why we're supposed to know we need it to rain on that guy, or why we should put the butterfly on that particular lamppost, or why the butterfly would be expected to even stay at the lamp when we release it in the first place, none of that's quite clear. Maybe someone mistook a butterfly for being a moth? The inventory system is another clever idea. One of the more ridiculous features of adventure games is the fact that you often end up with a huge inventory of items that you're supposed to be carrying around at all times, with characters supposedly having huge items, and in one particular instance, an entire table stuffed into the pocket. The Discworld is perfectly set to fix this. Rincewind can only generally carry one item in addition to his money pouch, but he has the luggage with him, which can of course carry any amount of stuff in its seemingly infinite insides. Even this can be a bit fiddly though, since there's the occasional section where Rincewind has to separate from the luggage, and if you don't have the right item you need, you'll have to go all the way around and come back again. And given how random the puzzle solutions are, this could take some time.
What were we talking about again?
Discworld also contains an extremely well-hidden Easter egg that people had found within the game files, but which no one could figure out how to trigger. It was finally discovered only 20 years after the game was released. By performing a very specific series of clicks on a scene in the PlayStation version of the game, Eric Idle says,
I want to be the first person in a game to say fuck.
My dear sir, I'm shocked.
I'm now sort of curious as to whether he actually was the first. We were still a year away from Christopher Walken in Ripper after all.
This guy is unfucking believable.
If you've got a walkthrough to hand, playing through Discworld can be an entertaining experience, but to play without one is an exercise in frustration, which makes it a bit of a failure as an actual game. Thankfully, when it came to making a sequel, they would be able to learn from their mistakes.
This seems like a good cue to cease this whole silly conversation.